Hey guys, Jeff here with Passive Income Unlocked, and this is the August 2022 income report. If you want to follow along, head on over to passiveincomeunlocked.com. I will also put a link in the description below. So if you want the short version, in August we made $31,200. Our expenses were roughly $8,700, leaving us with a net profit of about $22,500. So we dropped down from about $38,000 to $31,000, going from July to August. Pretty much all of that can be attributed to two things, and that is lower RPMs and a seasonal decline in two of our sites. I'm going to actually jump into the analytics for all of our sites in this income report, so do something a little bit different than usual. So you'll see that decline on two of our sites, and those are two of our biggest sites, and it's just a natural seasonal decline that you'll see throughout the month. The RPM drop, though, that is unusual. Typically with RPMs, what we typically see is that each quarter, the first month is the lowest, and then it goes up a little bit in the second quarter, and then a little bit more in the third quarter, or the third month, sorry. So second month it goes up, third month goes up. But what we actually saw was a drop going from the first month of the quarter into the second month of about 2 to 7% across our sites. First time we've seen this, as far as I know. You combine that with the seasonal drop, and it took a pretty big hit on our revenue. We're not too concerned about it. Obviously, the economy is not great right now in the United States, and that's where most of the advertisers, the high-paying advertisers are. So we're going to see a hit for that. We're just going to push through, and eventually it will bounce back. We're not worried about it. Our main focus, of course, is just growing our sites. We can't control the RPM, so it's not something we're going to stress about. And before I move on here, I forgot to point this out, but my kids are in the background, so if you hear them coughing or whatever, school started last week. They're already sick because that's how it goes with school. So they're just sitting over there on their tablets, trying to behave, but they're probably going to be chatting a little bit and coughing. So it is what it is. So, all right. So the first thing I kind of want to touch on here is the helpful content update. So that's obviously the big thing on people's minds. That was announced in mid-August. It rolled out, I think, on the 25th, if I remember correctly. I'm shooting this video currently on the 4th of September. So the update is not done yet. So Google has not told us that it's done, at least. And the first week, so throughout this particular income report that I'm showing you, there was really no traffic decline on any of our sites. They were completely untouched. And that seemed to be the norm for most people. I didn't hear a whole lot of cases where people lost traffic throughout the first week of the update. As soon as we hit that, maybe the last day of the month, and then September 1st and 2nd, we started to see a decline. Not just us, but a lot of people started to see a decline there. And in our case, our four oldest sites were untouched, still untouched. Everything looks normal there, which is great. But our two newest sites, they have been hit pretty hard. So site number 5, super broad site. That was one that I talked about in previous reports, where basically we picked a super broad niche and just kind of peppered topics throughout it. Didn't do any kind of clustering or anything. That one is getting hit, and that's not surprising. I'm not surprised at all that that one would get hit. We are going back now. We have been for the entire year and targeting clusters on that site, but there's just so much random content on that site that it does not surprise me that that one would be getting hit. And then we have our case study site, which we are doing pretty much exactly what Google says they want to see, and that one is getting crushed. That one's down about 40 to 50% each of the last, I think, 3 days. So I'll go over that separately in the case study video, which will be out probably in about a week. But as of right now, Google is not liking that site for whatever reason. And I haven't done a lot of investigating, and I'm not going to until the update is complete. But basically, the only commonality between those two sites is they don't have a lot of authority yet. So site number 5, site number 6, there are two newest sites. And I did research just a few keywords on the case study site. Ones that I know we were ranking for keywords that were a little bit more competitive. Things that I wouldn't expect to rank for yet, but we were actually ranking pretty well for them. And on those few that I checked, we had dropped down from maybe position 1 or 2 down to about the middle of page 1. And the sites taking our place were high authority sites. So, and what I did notice was on these, we were actually targeting a very specific keyword with each of them. And our article is definitely better, really answers what people are looking for better. But the articles that took the top spots were from high authority sites that basically had 1 sentence or 2 sentences in their article, very broad articles that didn't really cover what was being looked for, but they definitely took the lead there on those particular keywords. So that's where maybe backlinks are playing a bigger role in determining the helpfulness of a site. Obviously, we don't know yet. It's just a theory, just something I happen to notice. Again, I'm not going to look into it any further until after the update is complete. So I will say that the general idea behind the update I really like. I think most people will agree that producing content that is good for the visitor is ideal. Creating articles that are shorter and don't have fluff, so not as much long-form content, that is ideal for visitors as well. I think it's a good direction to go. We're just going to have to wait and see if Google actually knows how to determine whether or not these shorter articles and these sites in general are actually better for the user or not. I've heard of a lot of cases already with people that say they have legitimate sites. Our case study site getting crushed like that, not what you would expect to see based on what they are telling us. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see how it plays out. And the algorithm will obviously be adjusted over time too, so sites could bounce back that are getting hit, and it's not done yet anyways. So, all right. Next, I'm going to pull up a screenshot of our sites and posts here. So we've got our 6 sites here that I just mentioned, the age of the sites, and the total number of posts. So we are over 4,000 on all of our sites there. The only change that we're going to do here, and this is kind of related to the update, kind of not. We were already going in this direction, but basically we try to spend about $8,000 or so a month on content. That typically gets us about enough content to publish 1 post per day on 4 of our sites, 3 or 4 of our sites, I can't remember. 4 of our sites, yep. And then the other 2 we've been publishing maybe 4 or 5 per week. But I think with this update, they are telling us get rid of the fluff. This is the direction we were already going. We've been shortening our articles all year, because if you outsource an article over 3,000 words to a writer, it's almost always going to be full of fluff. There's not many topics that really need 3,000 words when you're targeting lower competition keywords. So we've actually been going a lot lower. We've not been worrying so much about the length of the competing articles. We're more trying to target what does this article actually need as far as word counts go. We're going to keep going in that direction. So our hope is that by doing that, we can make our money go a little bit further. So if we're spending about $8,000 on outsourced content and it gets us enough to cover what I just mentioned, maybe we can stretch that a little bit further. Maybe we can post one post per day across all 6 of our sites. So that's what we're kind of aiming to do over the next couple of months as we kind of reevaluate, try to cut down on the length of articles, cut down on fluff. Not talking about anything drastic here. We're not going to start producing articles that are 300 words or 500 words or anything like that. We just probably will not go above 2,000 very often, which, like I said, we've been cutting down on that a lot lately anyways. So next, I will bring up a graph of our traffic, and I'm going to show you an overall graph first, and then I will jump into each site individually. So this is overall traffic on our site, on all of our sites. So page views, as you can see, we dropped a little bit there. Again, this is all tied to 2 sites, seasonality. The rest of our sites were either flat or they went up. So now I will jump into, and you'll see there, the drop was not very big compared to what the revenue drop was. So that was really because of RPMs, and I'll jump into that in a minute here. So now I'm going to show you our sites individually. So this is Google Analytics for the last 30 days, or actually for the last month. So for August, so I'll show you 2 sites at a time here. So first, let's bring up site number 1, site number 2. And as you can see, site number 1, that's our biggest site traffic-wise, flat. We do expect that one to go up over the next few months. That site always does better in the winter. And site number 2 is a seasonal site, and as you can see, it's just gradually been going down. That decline has continued to go down throughout the update, but it has not changed as far as that progression, so we don't think we're affected on that particular site. Next, I will bring up sites 3 and 4. So site 3, very flat, and site 3 is the site that, based on everything Google has told us with the helpful content update, that is the site that should have gotten hit without a doubt. That particular site, our goal when we created the site is we picked a domain name that was so broad that it was not tied to a single niche. It was just super, super broad. And when we started the site, we did start it focused like we always do, but we quickly broadened it out and started going after random topics on that site. Really, really broad. Then again, we brought it back in and started to narrow it again. But I'd say for the first 2 years on that site, we went really, really broad, and we actually saw growth on that site for 2 years straight. So month-to-month growth on that particular site for 2 years straight before we saw a decline. And that is the site that I would expect to get hit by an update like this, because it does not match what Google says that they are trying to do with this update. But so far, it has been untouched, so that's good to see. Then the other site there is My Backyard Life, of course, and that is seasonal. And as you can see, that one has gone down just seasonally, natural decline as well. Again, definitely not hit by the update. No change as far as what we see there. Last here, we've got sites 5 and 6. So these are the 2 that were hit by the update. You can't really see it there on the graph except for maybe the very last day where it went down. Site 5 was actually starting to go back up again. So Site 5 was hit by the May core algorithm update, and it actually been going up again over the last couple of months, which was good to see. And then, of course, it is getting hit again by this update. And this one's not surprising. Like I said, it's super broad, kind of similar to that Site 3 I mentioned a second ago. Not quite as bad as that one as far as how broad it is and how random the topics are, but still very broad. Does not surprise me that this one would be getting hit. Then Site 6 is a site that we really created with the visitor in mind, trying to create a good user experience, covering topics thoroughly, no fluff in the articles for the most part, and so on. So I'm really surprised that this one's getting hit. The only thing I can think of with this is that it's a very new site. 10 months in, we were ranking for keywords that we probably shouldn't be ranking for. Maybe in Google's eyes anyway, some competitive keywords where we were outranking some sites that have a lot more authority than us, and we are now dropping back below those sites. As of right now, we've basically lost about 3 months of growth on the site. And you can't see on this graph that I have on the screen here, but basically we saw a 35% increase in traffic in August over July, gradual increase throughout the month, and at the very end of the month there, it drops down. Then starting September, it drops down significantly. So, all right, so next I will bring up a screenshot of our revenue for August. So as you can see, the revenue is not going in the right direction, but again, this is tied mostly to RPMs and then seasonality as well. So we saw a decline, obviously, in seasonality, like I told you, with 2 of our sites, so site number 2 and My Backyard Life. The rest of our sites are either flat or going up. But the RPMs were down by about 2 to 7% across our sites, which is very unusual, going from the first month in the quarter to the second month in the quarter. We always see an increase there, but because of the economy, we actually saw a decrease in RPMs. And even though 2 to 7% doesn't sound like much, it turns into a lot of money at the end of the day. So I will just say that if you have not taken the time to look into ways to increase the RPMs on your site, that should tell you how important it is. Go over and check out Mediavine's guide. So if you just do a search, if I remember, I'll put it in the description as well, but if you just do a search for Mediavine's RPM guide, they have a really good guide with like 26 or 28 points on things you can do to increase your RPMs. We did all those things last year. It makes a huge difference. We saw a big increase in RPMs last year by doing those things, so definitely check that out. Even a 1 or 2% increase does make a difference on your site as far as how much money you're making. So next screenshot I'll bring up here, this is from Mediavine. So this is our display ad revenue, pretty similar to what we normally see there. So that was the bulk of our money. Next screenshot I'll bring up is from Amazon Associates. So this was down a little bit last month as well, but still pretty similar to what we typically see, about $1,200. And for other revenue sources, they were all under $50. If you want to check those out, I do have those listed in the written version of the income report. All right, so for expenses, that came out to $8,707. About $8,000 of that was attributed to outsourced content. And if you look at the written guide, what you're going to see there is we now outsource to 2 different companies. We outsource to Texton and Content Pit. Content Pit is our go-to for sure. We prefer them by far. And as you see on a report, you'll see we spent $0 with Content Pit last month. And the reason for that is what we've been doing is we'll place a order with Texton right at the beginning of the month, and then one with Content Pit right at the end of the month. Unfortunately, last month Content Pit was running behind, so we had to push that order back towards the beginning of September. So what we ended up doing, just to keep things consistent with expenses, was we ordered again with Texton at the end of the month. So we are not dropping Content Pit by any means. If anything, we would go all in with Content Pit, but this is exactly why we like to have at least 2 services. So if one falls behind, we can shift to the other one. So that's exactly what we did. So we placed 2 orders with Texton in August, and then going into September, we'll probably just have an order at the beginning of the month with Content Pit, and then we'll start ordering at the end of the month with Texton going forward. So, all right, so net profit, we had revenue of $31,201. Expenses of $8,707, leaving us with a net profit of $22,494. So still a solid month for us. We do hope to see that increase going through the rest of the year. But again, we have never seen the RPMs drop going from month 1 to month 2 and a quarter. So we're not sure what to expect going into month 3 in the quarter, and then of course going into the 4th quarter. I will say that the beginning of September so far, and we are only 4 days in as of me shooting this video, the RPMs have actually been very solid in September. But of course, there is a U.S. holiday, so Labor Day, so I don't know if that's playing a role or not. But we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully the RPMs will be better, and we'll start to see an increase in RPMs and hopefully revenue as well. Sites 2 and My Backyard Life will continue to decline in all likelihood because they are seasonal. Sites 5 and 6 look like they got hit by the update, but 6 is not monetized and 5 was not bringing in much money yet anyways. So hopefully we can still increase our revenue going into September and then really increase it in the fourth quarter, but we'll have to wait and see. So as far as our future plans and goals going forward, we're not going to make a whole lot of changes. Obviously, Google has given us a blueprint for what they want to see going forward. I've mentioned in the past that we don't spend a lot of time analyzing algorithm updates because it's usually just a guessing game. This one's a little bit different because Google really laid out what they want to see going forward. So we almost have like their blueprints on what we should be doing to make our sites rank well in Google. So that's kind of nice. Whether or not their algorithm can actually determine which sites are more helpful than others is yet to be determined. But at this point in time, we are going to start to move more in that direction. We're definitely not going to take it lightly as far as what they said they're looking for. They obviously want to cut down on fluff. They want you to stay in your lane as far as really keeping your sites focused instead of going super broad. So we're going to keep these things in mind, and there were other points in there as well that I'm not remembering. But we're going to move more in that direction. But with that being said, we've already been doing that all year anyways. We've been on our sites going back, adding more content around existing topics, really publishing a lot of content around each cluster instead of just posting 1 or 2 articles here, 1 or 2 articles there. We've been shortening our article lengths all year as well to try to cut down on fluff. It's almost like we already saw the direction that Google was going. I mean, we were noticing in the SERPs that the articles that were ranking really high, a lot of times they were really, really short, even though there was a lot of more thorough articles below it. So, it's not the word count that really matters. It's really how well are you covering the topic for what the visitor is actually looking for. So that's the direction we've been going. We're going to continue going that direction. So it's not going to be a huge change for us, but nonetheless, like I said, Google really laid it out for us. So we're going to definitely go through their checkpoints there, make sure we're hitting all those boxes. So that's it for this one. Obviously, we saw a drop again, but unusual situation with the RPMs dropping. We'll have to wait and see what happens in September. We're hoping that we can start going back in the right direction. I'm definitely looking forward to this update being over with so we know where we're going to stand going forward. We feel like we're doing the right things already for what they want to see. It's not fun seeing 2 of our sites getting hit, but if 2 of our sites are going to get hit, it's obviously the 2 newest ones that we would want to get hit, so we won't take such a big hit in revenue. So, all right, guys, that's it for this one. I appreciate you watching. Keep an eye out for the case study video, probably in about a week.